Hello, my name is Noelle Dodge, and I'm a parent educator for the HUG program with Options and Advocacy for McHenry County. And I want to welcome you and first of all tell you how amazingly brave and powerful it is to step up and do a co-parenting group. So it can be very intimidating, it can be very scary because a lot of the things that we're looking at is cooperation from the other co-parent, whether it's a foster parent, a grandparent, a biological parent, or a community that's trying to raise a child or children. It takes a lot to be that person who's willing to look at themselves and what can I do to make my child's childhood more abundant. So I've served as a psychosocial therapist, group facilitator for about 8 years. I've also been a counselor for substance abuse as well as severe mental health disorders, and prior to parent educating. And early intervention and education just really has always been a part of what I did in those roles. And so this just allows me to reach out to more people before a crisis occurs. So when the opportunity came available to create a co-parenting program, I wanted to jump on it because I saw a lot of my parents that were married but have different parenting styles, or the parent is without their children, trying to get their children back from grandparents or foster parents, and the struggles that are involved with that. A lot of egos start to come up, and a lot of insecurities and our own childhood traumas become surfacing as we parent, and that's natural, that's normal, that's how child rearing is. So if you are looking for more information, I do recommend Dr. Shafali, The Awakened Family, A Revolution in Parenting is an excellent resource and book. And also the CD, The Gifts of Imperfect Parenting by Brene Brown is a great supplement. You can pop it in your car. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it is definitely a resource that I recommend for any parent. If you have children with special needs, this is also very important for you to get the support that you need, but also to know who you are being for that child and getting their needs met. And what I like to tell parents is co-parenting is a choice to put your children's needs before your own pain. And it's a very difficult thing to do. My children are 31 and 21 years old. I have a 20-month-old granddaughter, and I have another grandchild on the way. So I've seen how this plays out in my own experiences as a parent, as a co-parent, and dealing with step parents, whether it was my own spouse as a step parent or a step parent of my child's father, or wife, or you know what I mean. So I do have a lot of experience personally and professionally, and how I've seen that play out. So my intention for you in this program is for you to understand the role that you are playing in your child's life as a parent and as a co-parent to the other person that is raising your child. And what I would like you to get out of this is this is just an introduction. This is not the 8-week session. This is just an introduction, but I want you to walk away with this introduction with some tools and some insight into how you can change the dynamics of your child's parenting. So a lot of times when people hear, oh, co-parenting, well, I'm going to get the other parent to listen and do this and do that. And right away we've got an agenda, right? And that's the ego. That's how the ego mind works. You want to take that and throw it out the window because this is about you and who you're being for your child with whoever you're co-parenting with. So this isn't about trying to get anybody on board or to parent the way that you want them to parent. This is taking a look at who are you being in this parent in this co-parenting dynamic. So co-parenting is very common. A 2014 review, trusted source, estimates that 60% of children in America live with their married, so 60% of children in the United States live with their married biological parents. So that's more than half, but that is not a whole lot. 40% of those children live in variety of situations that involve co-parenting, whether it's living with another parent, living with a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a foster parent. So 40% of our children, that's almost half of our children, are living in situations where they are not with both biological parents. So co-parenting is a shared parenting of children by their parents or parental figures who are married or not married, living together or not living together. Co-parents may be divorced. Co-parents may be married. Co-parents may never have been married to each other. Co-parenting is also called joint parenting and can be shared with other parental roles, as I mentioned before, foster parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. Co-parents share not only the typical caretaking of children, but also cooperation in major decision-making with their upbringing, which could involve their education, where they're going to school, medical care. Are they being vaccinated? Are they being cared for any kind of illnesses or accidents? Religious schooling. Are they being indoctrinated with what the parents want or with who the caretaker is deciding it's going to be? Other matters of importance. So a lot of these important aspects that influence your child's personality, upbringing, and future are decided by co-parents. So if you have a situation where a step-parent decides they're going to go and get a child vaccinated, that couple gets divorced, the step-parent's gone, but this child has this lifelong decision that was made by someone who is not their parent. So we're going to talk a little bit about step-parents in a minute, and the important role that they play, but also the important boundaries they need to stay within, because a step parent usually steps in or steps up, but sometimes they also have to know you need to step aside. If it's not your child, you need to be a support to your spouse in raising the child, in how those two people decide to raise their child. But I'll get into that in a minute, and I know that probably is a hot topic that may have just turned a few people off, but promise you stick with this. If first you have to decide as an individual, not you, not the, I'm sorry, you, not the other person, not the people you're co-parenting with, you yourself. Are you willing and able to co-parent? So you may be willing and able. That's a cooperative co-parenting structure. The other person is not. We're not talking about the other person. You yourself. You're willing and you're able. Write that down. First thing you want to do, I forgot to mention, is grab a notebook. I don't care if it's a spiral 25-cent notebook or if it's a beautiful journal that you've bedazzled. Whatever you want to do, a notepad, whatever it is that you want. But grab yourself, and you can hit pause and come back. Grab yourself a notepad and a pen and something to drink. And we're going to sit down and get to business, because I do want you to walk away from this introduction with something. But you're going to get so much more out of the 8 weeks. And I'm hoping also that we'll be able to get together in person at least twice within that 8-month span. So it won't always be virtual, I'm hoping, but I don't know with COVID, with all of the different things that are going on in the world today, that could switch up. So we're going to try it this way and hopefully get in person in the year 2022. And this program will begin in January. So you have this to do until January when the course begins. And then when you enter the course, you'll already have what we're doing now solidified, solid, ready to go, and start with the plan moving forward. So this is a pivotal, even if you get this just a week before we start the course in January, this part is important to complete before doing the 8-week session. So grab your notebook, grab your pen, and write down, are you willing and able? Are you unwilling but able? You're totally able to co-parent, but you're unwilling because you have a lot of anger, animosity, frustration with the person that you have to co-parent with. It's okay. We're not going to show our answers. Write it down. You want to be as honest as possible right now, because this is you talking to you. You are not going to be sharing this with me. You are not going to be sharing this with anyone else in the group. This is you sitting down with yourself saying, what kind of co-parent am I? There is no shame. So you may be unwilling, totally able. You may be unwilling and unable. That's a conflictual co-parent. So you may be unwilling and unable. And so I don't have the means, I don't have the space, I can't co-parent, and I'm not willing to deal with her or him because they make me crazy. So I'm just out. I'm just out. So I don't think you would be here if you were unwilling and unable. You wouldn't even be looking at this video. So that may be the other person, but we're not dealing with the other person right now. We're dealing with ourselves. You may be willing and unable. I am totally willing to co-parent, but I'm unable because my co-parent passed away, or I'm not allowed to see my children. Whatever the case is, you may be totally willing but unable. That's an unstable co-parenting. That doesn't mean you're unstable. That means there is an unstable foundation to co-parent with, and that's going to require you to do some things a little bit different than other people in the group who may be willing and able, or unwilling and able. But if you're unwilling and unable, or willing and unable, it's going to look a little bit different, okay? And that doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means we got to make some adjustments, which we will do. So the next obstacle that we're going to, not obstacle, but the next assessment that we're going to identify is our parenting styles. So what is your parenting style? Are you a supportive parent who is authoritative? Now, an authoritative parent, the relationships are reciprocal, they're responsive, they're high in bi-directional communication, and it's putting the needs of the children first, but within the safe boundaries of accepting the child and being child-centered, but not overindulging the child. Then there's an unsupportive parenting, which is more parent-centered. And this is authoritarian. Now, authoritative and authoritarian are completely different. Authoritarian parenting, the relationship is controlling, power assertive, high in directional communication. You will do what you are told because I told you to do it, and do not question me. You know, that is more of the authoritative parenting, or I'm sorry, authoritarian parenting. Authoritative is asking the child, well, is that something that you are interested in? Would you want to do karate, or would you prefer to do dance? But we're going to do some activity outside of the home, some structured activity. So that is saying, we are doing this moving forward. However, you have an input as into where you spend your time, right? So we're giving them that structure, but we're giving them the freedom and autonomy to make a decision. Authoritarian is, you will do what I tell you to do, when I tell you to do it, and how I tell you to do it, because I'm the parent and you're the child. When you're an adult, you can grow up and do what you want. That's an authoritarian perception of parenting. Then there's the permissive parent, where the relationship is indulgent and it's low in control attempts. So the permissive parent is more like, well, we don't, if you want to just sit and play Xbox all day, we could do that. Just stay on your tablet, that's fine. Do you want to go to the park? No, you don't want to go to the park. Okay, we won't go to the park. The parent just kind of lets the child decide how they want to be parented, which can be helpful and harmful. There's pros and cons to that. But if you're an authoritarian parent and you're co-parenting with a permissive parent, this is where it can be very destructive. So what we want to try to do is move both parents into a cooperative parenting, authoritative parenting role. So you may have one parent who's like, he's got to go to bed at 8 o'clock. Every night he's got to be in bed. I don't care if it's Saturday. I don't care if it's Friday. I don't care what day of the week is, if there's no school tomorrow, but he's got to be in bed by 8 o'clock. And the co-parent is like, you know what? I see my kid every other weekend. If he's awake and we're playing and having a good time, I'm not putting him to bed at 8 o'clock at night. So then you have this needs not being met. So there has to be a compromise. And we're going to get into that in the sessions and how to break that down. And then the rejecting, neglecting parent. This is the relationship where the parent is rejecting and neglecting. They're uninvolved. They don't show up to the baseball games. If they do, they sit in their car in the parking lot and wait for the game to be over to drive the child to or from wherever it is they're going. Or they just don't show up at all. The child's sitting in the window, coat on, backpack on, sitting there waiting for mom or dad to come and pick them up for their visit, and the parent doesn't show up, doesn't call, doesn't answer the phone. Then the child is out there the next day playing with their friends and having a great time, and dad or mom shows up in the driveway and says, come on, let's go. And it wasn't a scheduled visit. This is a very chaotic and confusing parenting style. So again, just look at the screen and look at the descriptions and decide for yourself, which parenting style do you think you are? If you lie to yourself, you're only harming yourself. This is an opportunity to be very honest with yourself and your parenting, because you're going to be tempted like, oh, well, it doesn't look very good that I'm authoritarian, or it doesn't look very good that, I've kind of been neglecting my parenting. It doesn't look so you don't want to write it down. You can burn this, trash it, shred it, and do whatever you want later. Right now, you need to get really honest with yourself and do a fair assessment of who you're being in this transaction with your family. The next one we want to identify, and this is going to take you some time, so I don't expect you can watch this all the way through and then go back, or you can pause this and go step by step and do what we're talking about right now and get yourself these answers. So the next step is how to speak to your partners using love language. So which love language resonates with you? Do you prefer when someone gives you physical touch, they put their hand on their shoulder, rub your back, hold your hand, things like that. That tells you, those nonverbal body languages tell you that somebody loves you, or that's how you show that you love someone else. Receiving gifts, just little things. Oh, I was at the store and I saw this and I thought of you and I wanted you to have that. Or, that's how they show their appreciation for you. They send you gifts, unexpected gifts. Quality time, uninterrupted and focused time, conversations, one-on-one, important one-on-one conversations. Quality time is a love language. For some people, they're like, so we sat and talked for an hour. So what? Because their love language is maybe gifts. And your love language is quality time. And you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so loved. I feel so supported. And I feel so wonderful. And the other person is walking away going, yeah, I didn't get anything out of that, because their love language is gifts, right? So knowing your language and the language of the people that you're dealing with, especially your children, is important. Acts of service. So letting them know that you love them by doing things. I fixed the light fixture. I fixed the faucet under the sink. I changed her brakes. I did this, and she still, questions whether or not I care about her, because his love language is acts of service, or her love language is acts of service. I cleaned the house. I cooked the meal. I did this. I did that, and he still doesn't think that I care about him. I don't know how else to show him, because your love language is acts of services. Maybe his is physical touch or quality time. So look at those. How do you communicate with your love language? What actions do you take with your love languages? And then things to avoid when your love language is physical touch. Physical neglect or abuse, physical abuse, is what you want to avoid, or physical, not recognizing or appreciating someone's efforts, I'm sorry, words of affirmation. I just looked at that. Words of affirmation is also a love language. So encouraging people, affirming them, appreciating them, and listening to them, actively listening is a love language. So you could sit there and be listening to someone's problems and communicating with them. Giving them words of affirmation, sending them little texts in the morning to, have a great day kind of thing. And they still don't feel loved or appreciated. So when a person who has a love language of words of affirmation, they're going to feel unloved when they're not getting appreciated or that in return. So take a look at how to speak your partner's love language and identify one, what is your love language? What do you think the love language is of each of your children and your co-parent? And this could be your in-laws, your ex-in-laws, your parents, the foster parents. Like, what have you noticed about these foster parents that is their love language that seems to be resonating with your child, who your child is responding to this type of love language? That might be helpful in you in reestablishing trust with your child. And then we have, be honest with yourself. This is a quick clip that I wanted to share with all of you about who you are in your parenting. And it's about 3 minutes.
If the relationship has crossed over a point where it's become controlling or violent or abusive, then that relationship needs to go. It needs to be released. And if you stay in such a relationship, no harm, really. If you're willing to ask yourself, why am I staying in this relationship? Relationships are so tricky, aren't they? I mean, they pose the greatest challenge to us. And the reason why they do is because I believe relationships pose as a mirror to our own inner self. So all the ways that we haven't grown in our own life, they're going to be reflected in that relationship. A lot of why we feel the way we do in relationships is because we're carrying this baggage from childhood and we're repeating the dynamic in the relationship. I always say that we are addicted to this repetition of patterns, to recreating emotional experiences from our childhood that have now become a pattern, a habit, and we get addicted to it. We don't realize it, you see. We think, oh, I fell in love with someone new. How am I feeling the same way? The reason you're feeling the same way is because that way hasn't been resolved inside you. You haven't healed what you came here to heal. And you're skipping from one relationship to the other and not learning the lesson you need to learn. The relationship is a mirror for you to grow. Now, having said that, if you're in a relationship where you simply feel that you cannot grow, well, then that is a sign for you that maybe this relationship is not the right fertile ground where you can grow right now. And it's really important for us to learn to have boundaries, to release relationships that do not serve our highest good. If the relationship is one where both can grow, then I believe that relationship is important to stay in and to learn the lessons you came to learn. Even if it's poking you, even if it's jabbing you, even if it's showing you parts of yourself that you don't want to see, it's good. You're seeing parts of your shadow that need to be healed. Use the relationship to grow. But if the relationship has crossed over a point where it's become controlling or violent or abusive, then that relationship needs to go. It needs to be released. And the reason why most people stay in toxic, chronically abusive relationships is because they're codependent, because they simply cannot stay and stand in their sovereign self. They are enmeshed and extremely needy to be in that dynamic, to be in that abusive relationship. So if the codependent person is willing to look at themselves in the mirror and learn through that abusive relationship, then they are benefiting. But typically, those relationships are so abusive that the codependent person simply needs to leave and then learn their lessons. So it depends on every particular relationship. Each relationship poses different challenges, but the fundamental quality that stays common to all relationships is that they are here to be a mirror to your own addiction patterns, to your emotional experiences.
So that is Dr. Shefali. That is the one that I told you is I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get back to there we are. Dr. Shefali, who is the author of The Awakened Family. So it starts with you. So what patterns are you addicted to? Debating. Debating can be a pattern that you are addicted to that can create animosity between you and another co-parent, friends, coworkers, etc. So if everything is like a debate, I was once in a relationship with someone where him and his father constantly would debate. So they would pull up research and debate with each other. And then it became everything that I would state would become a debate. It was like he was addicted to debating, got to win at all costs, got to be right, have to be one up. And this was something that was conditioned in his thinking because it started out as a friendly thing between him and his dad that turned into something that spilled over into all of his relationships in an unhealthy manner. Does that mean his father was a bad dad? No. Does that mean him and his dad had an unhealthy relationship? No. But it got out of control. He became addicted to debating. Same thing can happen with arguing. People can be addicted to arguing. There's an adrenaline rush. There is something that comes from that arguing, and that they become addicted to. So they're constantly arguing with everyone around them, including their children. Fault finding becomes an addiction. So what we want to do in this program, as you're exploring this, we're doing the self-discovery work. We're discovering who we are as parents. So what we want to do is keep the mindset. We are not fault finding. We're cause finding. Sometimes we find out that we are the cause, like the father who's debating with his son, and his son becomes this master debater. So it's we're not fault finding dad, but we're cause finding. Oh, that fun bantering has spilled over into an unhealthy lifestyle. So we're not blaming dad. Dad's not at fault, but that is a cause that was developed into something that became unhealthy. So there's a difference. The need to be right. Sometimes people are addicted to, they need to be right. They need to control with emotional abandonment. So if you disagree with me, I'm going to ghost you. I'm going to shut down and not talk to you. I'm going to withhold conversation to control. A need to control using finances. Oh, you didn't do this? I'm not going to fix your car, even though I promised to. I'm not going to give you gas money, so now you can't go to work, and this sabotages you in some way. Controlling the household on using finances. And the need to use fear to control is also a very unhealthy addiction, and it's a pattern. It's a behavior that comes out in not just one area, but in all areas. And if you're doing it in your relationships with your friends, your family, your spouse, you're doing it on an unconscious, subconscious level with your children. That's hard to hear. So the next slide here, we're looking at behaviors. Behaviors is what everyone sees on the top. That's what everyone is exposed to. What people are not exposed to are the thoughts and the feelings. And the thoughts and the feelings are what drive the behaviors over that waterline. It pushes those behaviors. So it's the thoughts and the feelings. Our values is comes from looking at who we are and what is important to us, our integrity. So your values may not be aligned at all with your thoughts and your feelings. Your values may be, honesty and integrity and communication, but then your thoughts and your feelings are like, but if I communicate that, they're going to make fun of me, and then the behaviors is not doing that. So you can have certain values that you try to embody, but you're not executing them because the thoughts and the feelings are a barrier, and your behaviors come from the thoughts and the feelings, not the values. Then you have your subconscious beliefs. And those subconscious beliefs are all the way at the bottom. And these are the ones that you probably don't even realize that you're thinking. So behaviors is just where it begins. So we leverage cognitive behavioral therapy. You may have heard of CBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, to explore the thoughts that create the feelings that drive the behaviors. That makes sense. So we're going to use CBT and DBT to explore the thoughts and feelings. To explore the thoughts that create the feelings that drive the behaviors. And then we will use the Brene Brown Connections curriculum to identify, and I use parts of it in our 8 weeks. There will be parts of her Connections curriculum to identify values that are violated by our subconscious beliefs with not using shame. So the Brene Brown Connections curriculum is a 12-week session curriculum that is building shame resilience. So what we want to do is we want to look at our behaviors. We want to identify the thoughts and feelings that are driving those behaviors. We want to secure our values so that we don't use shame, because we're going to do this we're going to look at ourselves and our behaviors, and we're going to remove shame. There's no shame. It's just factual. Here's what I do. Here is the outcomes. What do I need to do to get a better outcome? That's it. There is no shame. There is no parenting, even though there are books, there is no parenting handbook that says step by step, this is what you need to do. All we have is the tools. We have the, parents as teachers curriculum to help teach parents how to be that child's best parent or best teacher. These are things, but if we don't put the knowledge into action, then it's just knowledge that we have. And we need to be able to be in a safe space where we can do that. So that's where, if you go through this introduction and you do your journal and you identify all these things that we're talking about and you want to process it, I do encourage you to give me a call. We will process it. We will go through it. We will, break it down before going into that 8-week session. So please make sure that you do contact me after this to let me know, one, if you're interested in the 8-session program, and two, if you need to process anything, or, okay, I've identified this, and now what do I do? Like, okay, now I know, but now what? So that's what we want to be able to go through.